So I've known Dave 4-5 years now, and he's become one of the people who I admire the most in terms of being successful on the web. He's built a really, really amazing web business and brand. I write about him in my books. I talk about him in the classes I teach. He's always an example of somebody who exemplifies performing internet entrepreneur at an extremely high level. I've seen him speak multiple times, and I think you're really going to enjoy what he has to say. So here's Dave Taylor.
Thanks, Jim. Well done. I have to start out with the ironic note that I am very much a Mac aficionado, and my Mac failed to work with the projection system, so we're using a PDF on Windows. So bear with me as we go through. So here's the thing, is that we've spent the last couple of days having everyone pump our brains full of ideas to make money, right? It's like you can be more successful. And one of the things that I've found at a lot of conferences, really probably at all the business conferences I've gone to, is that people tend to measure their success as a multiple of where they were previously. Does that make sense? So, in other words, your New Year's resolution might be to earn 50% more than you did the previous year. And then your New Year's resolution the next year is to earn another 60%, or gradually get more and more and more. And I think the sort of core thing that I want to have us chew on, and I do really encourage participation. You can throw chocolates at me if I get really boring. From the back, it'll be more challenging. Is the idea that what if the equation wasn't to continually earn more, but the equation was more to get to a point where you were fine and then level off, and then try to work on minimizing the amount of time it takes to sustain it. Now, this generally goes in the face of what everyone's been selling you, too. You go down the hall and it's like, make more money, get more payouts, get better percentage payouts, get paid twice a week. What, once a week was not sufficient, that you had to get paid twice a week? If that company's here, I apologize, sort of. But this is the wrong message. And so what I want to do is, and Sean and I talked about this at length, I want us to try to end the event here with the idea that it's about balancing this. And this talk all came about because I was at an event a couple of years ago, and I remember talking to a guy, and he was telling me how every night the guy worked like 16 hours a day, he had a website, and he was convinced it was going to be hugely successful, but he really had to be on top of it. So he was telling me this story about how his wife and kids would be on the other side of the house, or the other side of their room, eating dinner, and he would be sitting at his computer eating dinner, and his kids would be in tears because they so wanted him to join them. And he felt like he couldn't take 15 minutes off to be able to actually sit and have food with his family, that he had to be right there at the computer, ready for those momentary actions. I heard that, and it broke my heart. And it broke my heart for his kids. And obviously we're all here, we're all in Las Vegas, odds are pretty good, none of us actually live at the Wynn. I don't think I could afford it. Although I like the idea of someone coming and cleaning the room every day. That's a separate story. So when you go home, again, it's that trying to find the balance. So I thought I would start with a perhaps humorous look at all of this, and if this is you, you don't have to admit it. So I'm going to read this because it's a little fuzzy. So this is these two guys. This is this very funny comic strip. I read comics. I watch science fiction movies, all that. So he starts out, I don't know why I can't find a nice girlfriend. Is your online dating profile up to date? Yep. Does your Facebook page push the envelope? Of course. Is your website filled with interesting tidbits and recent photos? Sure. Do you post some cool videos of yourself on YouTube? Yes. Everything sounds fine. What's the problem? And the problem is, I think it's that whole human interaction thing. So I know a lot of people where this sadly applies to them. It's like all my best friends live thousands of miles away, but we chat every day while we're busy playing World of Warcraft or something. It's like, okay, that's fine, and it's cool to have friends like that. But when you fall down and you can't go to the market, are they going to be able to drop groceries off? There are all too many people in this industry where their relationships suffer and die because they're so busy working, thinking that earning more money is going to get them more love. and get them to be happier, and then their spouse, their partner, of course, is going to forgive them for working every Saturday and Sunday, because the end goal is to have this fabulous house in Hawaii or something. Generally, how many people think that works as a long-term strategy? Yeah, not so much. So let's get into my talk. And again, I will remind you, if you want to interrupt, feel free to interrupt, challenge, disagree with me gently, or not, whatever. So I wanted to say that first off, the talk is sponsored by the number 275. And other than people that might have heard me talk about this before, does anyone know what 275 is? Okay, good. Then I have your suspense. We'll get there. I'm not going to tell you now. That's too easy. So here's the thing, is that, there's only a finite number of hours in the day. There's only a finite number of days. Your plane could crash on the way home. I dearly hope it will not. But if it does, have you spent this time well? Have you taken care of your family and your friends? Have you nurtured your children? Or have you just tried to get a bigger and bigger bank account? And then, this is that whole sort of American approach and perhaps Western cultural approach to being successful. The way you know you're successful is you have more expensive stuff. So we're at a hotel that Steve Wynn dropped $2 billion on. I mean, he didn't really literally drop $2 billion on. And there's a Maserati dealership out front. You look at those cars and it's like, wow, that's really nice. If I had a spare $200,000, wouldn't it be fun to have one of those? On the other hand, what else could I do with that $200,000? What if I only had a spare $100,000 because I actually went to the ballpark and played with my buds? What if I did that Friday pickup basketball game at the gym every Friday afternoon and earned just a little bit less, but had a better quality of life? The fact is, there are a lot of people where this is their entire vantage. Either the cubicle literally or the cubicle figuratively, because the worst thing about working for yourself, and I work for myself, is you always you live in your office and you sleep with your boss. Creepy, kind of. But it never goes away. It never turns off. It's up to you to say stop. I am amazed. One of the things that's really changed in the last 10 years or so is that it used to be if I sent email to someone over a weekend and they worked in a corporation, I'd get response Monday afternoon, Tuesday. Now I'll get email from Ford or from Motorola or Intel or even really big companies, and I'll get email from these people Sunday afternoon. Fact is, if you go to somewhere like Silicon Valley or really any tech center now, and you drive around on the weekends, there's almost as many cars in the parking lot as there are during the week. How many of you work every single Saturday? Just be honest, even just for an hour or two. Okay, so do you think your business is really going to fall apart if you give it one extra day? Kim, I know you can handle having not working for a couple hours, right? Right? So, you have to figure out. So here's a question that I'm not going to answer the way you think I am. So what do you do when life gives you lemons? Come on, come on. No. Okay, so we are in affiliate marketing. So here's what you do. So when life gives you lemons, you find a kid down the street that's really into making lemonade, and you say, I'll give you free lemons if you give me 10% of your sales. Right? Is that not a better strategy? You don't want to make the lemonade. The point is that the more you think you have to do everything, the more time just keeps expanding and expanding for you to be able to accomplish. I'm not very good at web design. You know what? I outsource it. I hire someone to do it. I will sit there at my house. There's a lot of stuff that I'm not really great at. So I'll sit there at my house answering email while an electrician is working in front of me on stuff that I could do. But the fact is, paying him and doing my time on this is a much more efficient use of my time, because then both of the things get done and then I can go and do something else. Much better use of my time. This is, again, Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week, right? What's Tim talking about? One word, anyone. Summarize his whole book in one word. Come on. Outsource. Good job, Chuck. Thanks. So that's what I'm talking about is how do you figure out how to get from here to there? So I'm going to beg your indulgence and read something else, because I think that Tom Sawyer was the original entrepreneur. And I love Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and all these books, and I'm really saddened that they've republished them by scrubbing some of the language so that it's not historically accurate. Whatever. Luckily, that doesn't apply to this quote. So I'm going to set this up, so Tom is the ne'er-do-well of the town. He's the troublemaker, but he's always working the angles. He's like all of us in this room. He's always trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How can I twist this and turn this to my best advantage? So he's stuck having to whitewash a fence. which if you don't know is a very tedious job. So this other boy comes up to him and says, "Hey, I'm going swimming, I am. Don't you wish you? Oh, but of course you'd rather work, wouldn't you? Of course you would." So Tom contemplates the boy a bit and says, "Well, what do you call work?" And the boy says, "Why, ain't that work?" Tom resumed his whitewashing and he answered carelessly, "Well, maybe it is and maybe it ain't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer." "Oh, come now, you don't mean to let on that you like it." The brush continued to move. "Like it? Well, I don't see why I oughtn't to like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day? Brilliant, he's so good." That put things in a new light. Ben stopped nibbling his apple. Tom swept his brush daintily back and forth, stepped back to note the effect, added a touch here and there, criticized the effect, Ben watching every move and getting more and more interested, more and more absorbed. Presently, he said, "Say, Tom, let me whitewash a little." So that's why you outsource, because you can find someone that's really into what it is you don't want to do. And then you freed up your time. And so here's another core thing to chew on is, what are you actually selling? As a business, as an individual, what are you selling? Your time or your expertise or your knowledge? I actually, what was it? It was 2007. My New Year's resolution was based on this. I didn't resolve to lose weight. I didn't resolve to go to the gym. I didn't resolve to get a haircut, although my mom would have appreciated it. I resolved to switch my business from selling my time to selling my knowledge. Prior to that, I was a consultant. And the thing about being a consultant is it's a never-ending chore, because however much you're booked, you always have to be looking for the next thing. Right? Everyone, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, because that's why you're here, is looking for your next gig and trying to overlay things so that you never get to that dreaded lull where you have no income and no prospects. It's kind of a drag, especially if you have a family. So there I was trying to figure out, how do I get out of selling my time? The biggest problem to me with selling my time is just the whole constraint of I can't go on vacation. I can't take a day off. If I'm just selling my time and I want to take a long weekend, I've lost money. Anyone feel that way? Kind of a bummer. Kind of like, why am I not working for the man? Remind me what I'm doing with my own business. So it's a really core concept, and I will suggest that it's even harder for affiliates. Because here's something that most people at this conference probably haven't said to you if you're an affiliate. You're selling the same damn thing everyone else is, with the same descriptions and the same pictures and the same price. What makes you different? What makes you think you're going to succeed over someone else? It's doable, but it's sure a whole heck of a lot of work. And again, you need to figure out, how are you going to balance all of this so that 24 hours a day isn't work? Be nice to sleep occasionally, right? There's all sorts of data that shows if you sleep more, you actually are more productive and you're smarter and you think more creatively. That doesn't really work if you're up till 3 in the morning every night trying to make sure you get that last email out and tweak that one product entry. Am I resonating with anyone in this room, or are you guys all desperately in need of like the Starbucks cart? Okay, I'll assume I am. So here's my proposed solution, because I don't want to just present all these questions and then leave you without any way to go from here to there, is I think the key is to really think about selling your knowledge, because selling your knowledge becomes passive income. So while I'm standing here on stage, my business is generating revenue. Right? That's the goal of being an affiliate. Right? The goal of having a really great kick-butt affiliate site is you build it, you do all the SEO, you do all this stuff, you get all the links, you become popular in the industry, your dad thinks that you've finally succeeded after all these years. You're not living in the basement anymore, hopefully, maybe, I don't know. You could probably blog about that. And somewhere along the way, you realize that, hey, I can now take a day off. Things backlog a little bit. I'm going to have to come back and deal with the email. But my business will actually make money without me putting time into it on a per-hour basis. So I'm just curious, how many people have a business now where it is continuing to generate revenue for you, even though you're here at the conference doing other stuff? Okay, that's not a very big percentage. And this is a conference where everyone should be ready to raise their hand, because to me, if you're an affiliate or you're in the affiliate space and you're still selling your time, maybe you're not really doing the affiliate thing right. No offense. But again, the goal is to really figure out how to have like a little printing machine in the back of your house. And when you're focused on your work and you're making your business rock and roll, it's doing huge. But when you're doing something else, it's still doing something. Right? So maybe your search engine results placement, your SERPs sort of slow down a little bit when you're on holiday, but then you can bring them up again because you know what your audience is into, you know where the community's at. I went to the session yesterday when they were talking about spotting and reacting to trends. And all I could think about was that guy who was sitting there and couldn't have dinner with his kids. Because it was that same sort of thing. Is here's what you run. Here's how you analyze what's going on with Twitter. Here's how you can use Google Trends, and you can use all this stuff, and you could just be the first one there and get a new website up and register the domain and everything. And it's like, that's work, man. I don't want to do that. I don't mind long-term trends. What's going to be important next summer? Okay, I can work backwards and start prepping for that. But again, when you're getting into being super reactive, you're selling your time. And if it's not successful, it's like, oh, well, I'll try the next time. That sounds really, really tiring. So instead, this is my goal. My goal is to actually be hanging out in Hawaii, not talking to you guys in Las Vegas. Sorry, Sean, we'll talk later about new venues. So here's just sort of to give you a sense of how this can be done, is that I took my son to Chicago for a week. And actually, it was, I guess, less than a week. But it felt like a week. Had a great time. He loved Chicago pizza. I know there's the whole, okay, how many people, New York pizza? Raise your hands. Okay, Chicago pizza, raise your hands. New Yorkers lose out, sorry. So I like both. I'm agnostic. I'm pizza agnostic. So we went to Chicago, and while we were there for this week, my business continued to chug along. And I'm happy to report my Google AdSense revenue alone in that 5 days was $2,600. So what does this mean? Does this mean that I'm going to go over to the Maserati dealership and look for a car? No, quite the opposite. In fact, my goal is to not actually change my lifestyle as my business gets more successful. Why? Because I'm not going to get into that rat race of, I need a bigger house, I need a better car, I need more expenses so that I have to earn more money, so that this thing becomes an increasingly hard balancing act and juggling act. And I never get to say, hey, I don't want to get out of bed this morning. I'm just going to stay in bed, honey. Or, look, it's a beautiful day. Let's go for a hike. If every day there's like 50 meetings you have to do, if you have to just work, so that you can earn more, so you can get more fancy stuff, maybe it's time to look a little bit and reflect on, is that really how you want to live your life? And when you look back on it, is that how you want to have lived your life? So I think you need to really prioritize. And again, there's all sorts of data. And, it's like people that smoke. Everyone that I know that smokes knows how unhealthy smoking is. They just say, yeah, whatever, it's only one cigarette. Okay, but all this stuff adds up. And it's all judgments and decisions that you're making. And it's all things that you're deciding at that given moment. Do I want to do something healthy, something unhealthy? Do I want to do something that's smart for my future or dumb for my future? I totally support the right for you to do whatever you want. If you want to skydive and hope you're going to land in a bale of hay, good luck to you. Please, before you do that, give me your password, because odds are pretty good you're not going to make it. So again, key decision, key thing you have to chew on is, for any given thing that you're doing, every decision that you make, every new joint venture you get into, every new network you sign up for, every new affiliate program you want to get involved with, is that actually how you want to spend your time? Could you get to a certain point and then actually start slowing down, knowing that you're actually doing pretty well? With apologies to Clint when he was young. So here's a quote I have heard attributed to a whole pile of different people, but I'll tell you, really getting this quote was really important for me, because I am definitely a perfectionist, and I can spend an infinite amount of time tweaking and tuning and fixing things. I have 20 books, thousands of publications. I write movie reviews for the local paper. I write for columns for newspapers. The fact is that I have needed to learn how to let go. I've needed to learn that good enough is good enough. I wrote a column about that once in Linux Journal, a very geeky magazine. I got this just amazing hostile response from people, where it's like, good enough isn't good enough. It has to be perfect. That's your life. That's fine. But I want to be done with things and get on to the next thing. Do you ever find that you're doing something where it's like, well, this was going to take 30 minutes. I'll just whip this little paper out or send out this little document to a client, and 7 hours later, you're still working on it? Because that first paragraph just doesn't flow quite right? That's a kind of crazy use of your time. So here's what to think about in that regard, is that imperfect action is always superior to perfect inaction. If you're waiting for everything to be just perfect and tomorrow is when you're going to work a little less, you know, tomorrow might not ever get here because it might always be that, and this might be what's stopping you from having more fun and having a better life and a better social life. And not being like that guy in the opening cartoon where it's that human interaction thing he doesn't really get. Which leads to the question, okay, so how much is enough? And here's something that, again, this is not a conversation that we ever have. Do you ever talk to your friends and say, wow, you got a raise, are you done? Is that your salary level? Are you happy now? Why not? What a totally logical thing to say. What a perfectly reasonable thing to say to the boss, hey, I'm going to pay you more money if you'll take this other client on. It'll take a little more time, but you'll get paid more. And you'd respond saying, you know, I'd rather have more time for myself, thanks. You don't want more money? No, I'm good. I'm making money. I'm paying the bills. We got some money going into the bank. You know, the kids have braces, and we've managed to afford that. We're okay. But that's an incredibly important thing to chew on and to understand, which is, given your lifestyle, how much do you actually need to earn? And with that, we will now go back to that number. So $275 times 365 days is $100,000 a year. So when you start talking about how much do I need to earn to be really successful, you need to earn less than $300 a day. I will put it to you, how many people here, if you were earning $100,000 a year, clear, would feel like you were doing pretty darn well? Okay, the rest of you are like driving those Maseratis, and you need to rethink your lifestyle so you can ratchet it down, maybe. Because that's a lot of money. You look at this based on the percentage of what people earn in this country or around the world, $100,000 a year is a pretty good income. And it's achievable. $275 revenue a day is not overwhelming. You know, I'm not going to stand up here like many of my supposed peers and talk about how I bill $20,000 a day or $30,000 a day. I've literally sat at tables with all these experts. And it's really like a pissing match. It's hilarious. Where the first person will say, well, you know, I bill at $350 an hour. Oh, well, I charge, you know, Procter & Gamble $30,000 for 2 days. Oh, well, I charge $100, you know, and it's just like, really? Wow. You know, what is this all about? What if you just said, actually, I took a 2-day project and made it 1 day so I could go meet with some friends and hang out? So I am all about having fun and being with my friends and socializing and doing interesting, fun things and not working. The problem is, if I was a complete slacker, I would have no money. So that's what I've been trying to work towards, and that's what I'm hoping to at least just, you know, give a little bug in your brain of what would your life look like if you were moving more in that direction, trying to maximize how much you're earning and how efficiently you're earning it so that you can minimize the amount of time it takes for you to get to the income level so you can go play. And play without guilt. Not like, well, okay, well, let's go and we'll go on that hike, but holy cow, in the middle of that hike, I might have to take a conference call. I mean, I know people where, you know, like single dads in particular, where they have their kid for a day. And they'll take their kid to the park, and while they're pushing their kid on the swing, they're on a phone call. Really? Can't like take 2 hours off from your incredibly important business life? Maybe you have some priorities wrong there. So the fact is, I will also say you can't get rich quick. This conference is not too bad, but I've definitely been to conferences where I'm the only person who has the courage to get on this podium and say, I'm not going to give you the secret that's going to make you rich tomorrow. Which generally means I don't make a lot of product sales by comparison to these guys, but that's okay. Because I think it's much more beneficial and it's much more rewarding, pardon the pun, to actually figure out how to do this more efficiently. Everyone still with me? I'm seeing some yawns. No one's thrown chocolate yet. That's a good sign. And see, the people sitting in the front, this is adverse consequence. Your laptop could just have chocolate right on it. I'm not liable if that happens. So here's what I suggest, you hear people talk about, oh, you need to set goals. Okay, I'll suggest that you need to set life goals. And further, I will say that there is no point in setting goals unless you understand how to set a goal. And you can't have a goal unless it's measurable. You can't have a goal unless it's something to achieve. To say I want to do better than I did last year, that's not a goal. To say I want to earn $10,000 more than I did last year, that's a goal. And then that you could say, let's take that 10,000, divide it by 365. Okay, I need to earn $19 more every day than I did last year. And it's going to fluctuate, but that's something you can start to track. And life goals are the same sort of thing. It's like, how do you want to be able to balance things? So one of the questions that I love to ask people, and my friends have heard me ask them this, is if you won the lottery and there were no financial constraints, what would you do? To me, the most successful people are the people that answer, I'd do exactly what I'm doing now. I'd just do a little less of it. Cool. Wouldn't it be nice to just have your life be about the stuff that you really like? Like Steve likes taking photos, so he's wandering around taking pictures. That's perfect. It's a perfect match. Hi, Steve, everyone. So that's the sort of balance is like, what are you really trying to accomplish and where are you going to go and how are you going to get there? Fair? Yes? No? Maybe? So your goals need to be measurable, quantifiable, meaningful, and valuable. It's all well and good to say it's a new year, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Okay, that's a nice measurable life goal. But if you're going to lose 10 pounds because you're going to work so much you forget to eat, I would suggest to you that's probably not a good strategy for solving it. Obviously, my bias is that your goals should be more life-oriented. I want to make sure I'm always available Friday and Saturday night to go out with my friends. I want to make sure that when the theater comes to town, I can take time off and go to the theater. For me, I'm really into World Cup soccer. So every 4 years, I take a few weeks off, literally. And I just time shift to wherever the games are, South Africa this time, wasn't too painful, and just watch all the games. And I make sure that I've set my business up so I can do that. How many of you watch the really big football game on the TV at work while you're still sitting there working on stuff? Isn't that a drag? Wouldn't it be more fun to be at a sports bar? I know you would like that, Kim, right? No comment. So here's my goal, just so I'm measurable too. And it's a sort of vague goal, but it's to have adventures with my kids every single month. I'm a very, very dedicated dad. When I'm with my kids, I'm really focused on my kids, which means that I have, pressure to make sure that I can compress my entire business week into 3 days, because the rest of the time I have my kids. So it's a really great exercise for me to have to really make this work. I don't want to have my kids and then say, well, you guys need to go watch TV because I have to go do this stuff. So here's some tips on how to get from here to there. And how are we doing on time anyway? I have no idea what time it is. It's 3:48. So we're zooming along here. That can't be right. Is it really 3:48? It's 4:03. Okay, thank you. See, it's a laptop and it doesn't even know what time it is. No wonder it didn't work with the projector. So, one of the tips is to look at how you spend your time and to really think about things like, are you maximizing the amount of time on things that are really feeding you, things that make you feel good? Or do you just sort of waste the time that you're not working because it's just like, if only I could get back to work? And if you're a super hyper-driven person, that's cool, that's who you are. But even people like that can figure out a balance, right? So I will give you some suggestions based on my experience, is turn off your TV, and here's another big one, is exercise. It's awful easy to fall into the I just gotta work, I gotta work, I gotta work. But taking some time off and doing whatever it is, going for a walk, a bike ride, skiing, climbing a 10,000-foot mountain. I live in Boulder, Colorado. Everyone's a hyper athlete. It's alarming. I have friends that go for 50-mile bike rides at lunch. Wow. Okay, so 10 miles, that's good. What else? Let's see. So sleep more. Again, this is the second time I brought this up. How many of you sleep less than 6 hours a night? Okay. How many of you sleep less than 4 hours a night? Okay. Yeah, the people in the back that are like, yeah, I never sleep, man. So here's something, again, there's all sorts of data. you will be more efficient. You will actually have better results. You will actually find the time you spend on your work and your personal life is more rewarding if you sleep more. So how many people get more than 7 hours a night of sleep on average? Yay, not bad, about a third. So the rest of you are in limbo. You're just like, I'd sleep more if I didn't drink so much coffee, right? I mean, think about how valuable Starbucks is, but for just that reason, so all the type A's can keep working. So play, how many of you are willing to just go and be silly? You go to a karaoke bar and you're like, I'm not doing anything like that. Okay, so again, there's lots of research that shows that going and playing and just doing silly stuff is really good for your brain. It's really good for your creativity. It's really good for your productivity. So the more you sit at your desk, the more you sit with your laptop, the more you sit work, and then you say, oh, it's okay because I play on my laptop too. When I have time off, I bring up this other program and I'm still sitting in front of my computer, but it's fun. Wow, you're the evolutionary path that leads to the matrix. I'm not looking at anyone in the audience, so don't feel like I'm staring at you. Simplify. Again, I think we live very complicated lives. And I think we live in a culture that encourages complexity and stuff and consumption. I mean, one of the fabulous things, I guess, that Steve Jobs did when he came back to Apple. So remember, Steve was part of Apple. Then they fired him. Then they hired John Scully, which was a total disaster. And then various other things happened as Apple was descending into the mud. And then Jobs came back as the Messiah. And what's the key thing that he did to make Apple really successful? He turned computers into fashion, right? You look at PCs, and if you have a 4-year-old PC, it really looks the same as a 1-year-old PC. But Macs, I can look at these Macs and I can tell you from the back how old your Mac is. Incredibly brilliant on Apple's part. But we are now the victims of this. With clothes, okay, you want to get new fashions. With cars, long since, that was what VW brought into the car industry back in World War II and just post-World War II, is they were the ones that said, let's design a different car every year. Why? Because people will want to upgrade to the newest car. Prior to that, with like Henry Ford and stuff, it was the same car year after year after year, so it didn't really matter if you had a 3 or 4-year-old car. The problem is that as things keep iterating faster and faster, and I spent the first half of this week at CES watching all the stuff that's iterating scary fast, the more we feel we need to have it. Oh, you have an iPad 1. Yeah, you're going to get an iPad 2 when that comes out? You have an iPhone 3GS. Oh, man, that's like 3 weeks old. So one of the fascinating things at CES is a year ago, the iPad was not on the market. There's your iPad. It has to be less than a year old. They didn't exist a year ago. In less than a year, the tablet has gone from essentially non-existent to being so pervasive at CES that not only does every major player have it, like Motorola, BlackBerry, Intel, Microsoft, they all had tablets, but even the B-listers, even the weird Taiwanese and Hong Kong companies whose names I can't pronounce and don't remember, they had tablets too. And it's just like, that's how fast the industry is moving. That's how fast our culture is moving. Things happen like that. Twitter feeds this, Facebook feeds this. Everything moves so fast. And it's really hard not to be sucked up in that jet vortex. But the problem with that is that we end up spending a ton of money to stay on top. And therefore, there's a huge amount of pressure to earn that money. So there's no time to enjoy the stuff you get. The iPad's really good at movies. Oh, I don't have time to watch a movie on my iPad. I'm working. Why'd you get it? Oh, because I'm more efficient, so I can even check my email while I'm at this guy's talk. Wow, can't you just focus on one thing? I realize this is like this extraordinary, I know, and I'm embarrassing a couple people, I'm sorry. And I've done it too, it's okay. But I realize we live in this extraordinarily ADD world. But it's our challenge as individuals to figure out how to manage it and how to wrest control of our lives back. Otherwise, there are going to be people that are just going to spiral into the ground. They're going to be working so hard to keep up on something that's moving faster and faster and faster, and that's a fool's game. There's no way to win that game, right? It used to be the old joke about the person who dies with the most toys wins. No one's going to win. That's not going to work anymore. And so if you have a 2-year-old computer, you know, it's okay. When the iPad 2 comes out, maybe you don't need to get it. Sorry, Steve. I did not say that. I'm just kidding. All hail. And so let's talk a little bit about friends. Let me actually jump to the next slide. So here's something that you probably heard people talk about before. But it's really an interesting exercise to look at the people you hang around and ask yourself, do they embody the characteristics and traits that you want to have yourself? This is the sort of prototypical problem of a couple starts to date, and then they get engaged, and the gal turns around to the guy and says, you know, you got to stop hanging around with your frat buds, right? So there's, you know, some problematic aspects to that conversation, but but it's also worth highlighting that there is a grain of truth there too. If you want to be successful, hang around successful people. If you want to be calm, don't hang around hyper people. If you want to be funny, hang around funny people. So look at who you hang around with, look at your friends, and even at work. If you're in a big enough company, who do you gravitate to? You know, I'll see at companies, I used to work at Hewlett Packard, for example, and there would be people that would hang around all the complainers. And you know what happened? They'd be complainers too. And they were their own little corner. And anytime there was a company event, there were the 3 or 4 of them sitting in the corner going, God, they suck. And it's just like, okay, if you hang out with them, you will think of the world that way too. And that's fine, that's your choice, but make it consciously. If you want to be a really successful affiliate marketer, make friends with the people here that are really rock stars, that are really doing it, and have remembered that, you know, your circle of friends needs to be a mix, so you probably need to have people that are aspiring to be where you are, as well as you aspiring to be where other people are. Does that make sense? So, you know, you look at something like The Secret. Anyone read this thing? Anyone get sucked into this? I know no one's going to admit it. Yeah, I saw those hands. You raise your hand like that much. Sorry? So the whole secret is positive thinking. Okay? I will say, my opinion, positive thinking is bunk. What you need is positive action. Right? The person who wrote this, they didn't say, we're just going to visualize being really successful. They hired a PR and marketing company. They knew what they were doing. It was incredibly well packaged and marketed because they knew that, you know, powerful intention is important, but only if it's followed up with execution. Tim Ferriss, anyone seen Tim speak? Great speaker. Every time I've seen him, he's running because he's so busy and he's so booked. Here's the guy who's espousing the 4-hour work week, and he has a hammock between 2 palm trees on the cover, and he is the fastest moving guy you've ever seen. Because he understands that to really get his message across, he can't do it 4 hours a week. You know, that's the trade-off with this stuff, and that's okay. But again, you know, going back to this slide here, think about who you want to become, and then try to hang around the people that have those attributes. I think that by itself is a huge, powerful thing. And I have a friend, we're really not even friends anymore. He turned around to me one day, and it was just the most fascinating question to get. Turned around to me one day, and he goes, all right, Dave, so I understand why I'm friends with you. Why are you friends with me? And it was just like, you know, I never really looked at it as an equation, but now that you mention it. So, you know, there's obviously a quid pro quo in any relationship, but try to look to the future. Try to imagine what your life would be like if you worked less and earned more. Try to hang around people that have those attributes or have gotten to that point, because they're the ones that on a Saturday afternoon, they'll call you and say, let's go golfing, man. Oh, I need to work. No, you don't. You need to come golfing with us. That's the kind of friends you want, versus someone where you call them and you say, hey, let's go golfing. And they say, oh, I need to work. You know, if you want to come in and work, maybe we can, like, you know, play cards at lunch or something. No, I don't want to work more. Oh, I don't want to hang around people like that. I want to hang around people that help me become a better person. Does that resonate with anybody here? I mean, there are fabulous people in this audience that have really great embodiments of everything we're talking about. Those are the people you should be hanging around, not the people like your boss, who is the type A plus super driver, where it's like, Sunday, 11 p.m., you have to go home? The hell? Are you not committed to the success of this company? Did I hire the wrong person? You're laughing, but I hear the pain in that laughter. So here's, and again, I've talked about this before. I admit it here on stage. It's on video. I can't get away from it now. I'm very lazy. But I will say, and thank you, Brad, I'm very lazy because I think lazy and smart equals efficient. So my goal, as I started out with that 275, right? So my goal has always been to figure out how much do I need to earn to feel really successful? How do I get there? And now, how do I minimize the amount of time it takes for me to be here? So a lot of my friends, they're like, well, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I don't really know, but I don't spend much time doing it. Which I'm not sure I should admit that on tape. Oh, well. But, it's awful easy to say, well, now that I've figured out how to spend less time doing this, I'm going to take another project on. Is there anyone in the room that has so many websites and so many domains that you need a spreadsheet to remember them all? Okay? You are the antithesis of this, and you should put your head down in shame. I'm kidding. See, and you could throw chocolate at me. It's right in front of you. So it's dangerous. But I think that the idea of, I've gotten to a certain point, and now I can really minimize the amount of time I spend should feel liberating. And then you combine that with, and I'm going to hang around with the kind of people that are living the values and behaviors that I want to have more of. You want to get to be a great golfer? Hang around people that like to go golfing. Seems pretty obvious. But you know what? There are a lot of people that have these dreams that they never get there. It's the same thing with this whole idea of, if you won the lottery, what would you do? I really am saddened by people where it's like, well, if I won the lottery, I'd just stop and just like cruise the world. So what's between you and cruising the world now? Oh, I got a mortgage payment. Okay, so sell your house. Buy a boat. If you're going to pay a mortgage on a boat, and then you're doing what you want to do. We're all really, really good at putting up barriers. We're all really, really good at justifying and rationalizing that where we are now, how we spend time now, and what we're doing now is what we have to do. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to just shake that up just a little bit. And just, do you really need the newest, fanciest? Do you really need to move into a bigger house because you got a raise? What would it look like for you to say, I just got a raise, I'm just going to put all of that into the kids' college fund so that when the time comes for the kids to go to college, I'm done, no worries. You pick your college, there's your 100,000 or whatever it is. And then when that runs out, you're on your own. My parents told me when I went to college, we'll pay for your first year. Then you're on your own. And you know what? I made it work. Somehow I squeezed through college. People can do this stuff. You can do this stuff. You can draw lines. You can just say, here's where I want to get to. Here's who I want to be. And you can be that person. And you can be lazy along the way. Yes. So, to recap briefly, a true entrepreneur can find opportunity in any situation. So even as I'm standing here saying all this, it's like, ooh, there's an iPhone app there. And if I charge 99 cents for that app, okay, but I don't want to write that app, so I could hire someone to do it, and then I could outsource the marketing, right? So, I hang around a lot of people where our brains never stop. We are constantly coming up with ideas, and it's very, very exciting. It's fun. You ever been in like a mastermind group or a brainstorming group where you're just at the end of the day, you're just like, I am so tired, but that was just like this huge endorphin rush, right? So, I think entrepreneurs and everyone in this room, you've all taken the time, you've all come here, you all come to this talk. You all want to be successful. I would say you all have the seeds of being hugely successful. The thing is to decide and to define that success based on your terms and your values. So again, when you start to feel like it's not going to work or you start to feel like you're running out of steam, think of Tom Sawyer. Here's a guy who had nothing, and he figured it out, and he worked the angles, and he made this successful. It's the same with that whole lemonade thing, right? You all just automatically said made lemonade when life gives you lemons. No, that's not entrepreneurial thinking. Why? Because we only go through life once, I think. So you've spent today this way, and I really appreciate and honored by the fact that you've spent an hour with me. That's an hour I can't give you back. So every time you sit there screwing around with your email and signing up for some mailing list and reading this stuff and poking around on YouTube, looking at funny videos, that's time you can't spend a different way because you can't go back. So if you're at home and you have kids and they're wondering what happened to mom or wondering what happened to dad and you're watching funny videos on YouTube, to me that's kind of a broken equation. You know, I'm not going to impose my values on you, that's not my place. But I would at least ask that you are conscious and that you think about, am I really efficiently utilizing my work time so I can be as efficient and productive as I can during that time, so that time doesn't constantly ooze and stretch and, honey, I'll be home at 6. Oh, actually, it's going to be 8. I know, it's another late night. I'm sorry. You know? And then you realize, I mean, how many of you had this experience? And, you know, and I have this too sometimes, where it's like 5 p.m., you feel like you've worked all day, and you have no idea what the hell you accomplished. Raise your hands. Come on, how many of you have done that? In the last 24 hours? No. Sorry, Sean, I'm kidding. I'll hear about it later. So here's our action plan, right? This is why I'm the last speaker at this event, because I want to give you something to do. And I don't want to give you something to do, which is go through your business cards and email everybody and make some new contacts and launch 7 new businesses and 37 more domains. Maybe that's the path. But more likely, you know, number one, most people, in my experience, go to conferences, they take tons of notes, they write stuff down on their computer, they go home, they forget it all because they get sucked back into email and they're back to business as usual, and this week becomes last week. And you just maybe gotten one new friend out of the deal. That is not a good use of your time. So here are my suggestions for goals for you. I'll look off this screen. Is try to have no work days. Do any of you do this? Do any of you just say, like, Sunday morning I get up and I never turn that computer on? Monday morning is soon enough. Okay, that's an alarmingly small number of people. I saw like 4 hands out of, 150. How about no email afternoons? Here's a really easy thing you can do that will by itself make you more productive. Go into your email program and change the frequency that it checks for email down to like once an hour. Right? It's amazing. Over time, and I've been working on email systems for 30 years now, which means that, yes, Al Gore and I were contemporaries, and we co-invented the internet back in the day. We used to have email systems where it would check every 10, 15 minutes for new mail. And they did that because they didn't want to overload the servers, because, God, there could be 50 people checking their email. Now, by default, it checks your email, as far as I can tell, like every 30 seconds. You know, it's like constantly, here's a new message, here's a new message, here's a new message. It's the ultimate of sort of the MTV video generation of perpetual interruptions. Because God forbid you focus on one thing for 5 minutes. So go into your email program as a minimum and set that to every 30 minutes, check for email. I will guarantee that there is no email that 27 minutes of waiting is going to ruin your life, unless it was a meeting message saying that you should have been at a meeting 10 minutes earlier. You're on your own with that one. You know, even better, just stop these programs. You know, Twitter's, again, another one of these great time interrupts. So the way that I use Twitter, and I'm using it less and less because I'm more and more conscious of how invasive it is I start the Twitter application, I skim through stuff for a few minutes, I make a couple of comments, and then I quit it again. I don't leave this stuff running because my time's more valuable than the incessant banal chatter of Twitter. Does anyone feel like Twitter is just chock-a-block with fabulous gems of wisdom? Warren, you have a very interesting follow list. I'd like to share it with you later. Otherwise, the rest of us are like, wow, I'm wasting so much time. And again, that's one of the challenges of social media, and all the social media experts won't tell you this, is it's a huge time sink. You need to have the self-discipline to say, all right, well, I'm going to market my business on Facebook too, but I'm not going to spend 4 hours a day doing it. Unless that you want to, and unless that's part of your social activity, in which case I will ask you how many of your Facebook friends are going to be there to get you a can of soup when you're so sick you can't get out of bed. Okay, See, you can't even turn your cell phone off. It's still ringing. It's unbelievable. Which perfect transition to turn off your cell phone. So, do any of you actually, are you single? Do you date anyone other than me? I'm the only single person in this room. Wow, scary. So here's the thing that's really amazing about dates now, is that people put their phones on the table. It's like, I'm really focused on you unless someone better comes along. So there's a good self-discipline. It's just like, turn the damn phone off, or at least put it on vibrate in your pocket, and then when you go to the bathroom, you can surreptitiously check it. But, we live in this culture now where we're really all incredibly self-absorbed and incredibly rude and incredibly convinced that we're right and everyone else is just like a complete idiot. And it's really going to cost us. It's going to cost us in health, it's going to cost us in mental health, and mostly it's going to cost us in relationships. And so the reason that I talk about work-life balance is because I want people to be happy. I want to hang around happy people. I want to hang around people that are satisfied with their lives, that are doing cool things. Once I started to really master all this stuff, I helped launch a nonprofit. That was great. It was something where I had the bandwidth that I could really put some of my energy and entrepreneurial zeal into helping other people explicitly with no benefit for myself. How many of you would like to be able to do that? To be able to say, I'd like to maybe put Fridays, and Fridays is my day to give back to my church or to my kids' school or to whatever, the old age home my parents are in. But I can't do it because I got to work so much. So look at how you're spending your time and look at how you're allocating your energy and how you're prioritizing things. And take weekends off, just completely. Go do stuff, go have fun. Really, the internet will survive without you for a day, I swear. It will still be here on Monday. Wait, today's Tuesday. So it'll still be here on Friday. So, the Beatles nailed it, right? They were like sort of the pop culture icons in their time. Money can't buy you love. So if your goals are all about earning more and getting more and having more and bigger, better, faster stuff, you're going to be real surprised at the end of that road when you realize it was the wrong road all along. And with that serious note, wait, what's happened? Oh, I think I'm going backwards now. Oh, okay, here we go. So we're there, then we're there, and that's my last slide. So thank you all very much, and if you have questions, let's take them. Otherwise, thanks a bunch, and thank you for coming to Affiliate Summit. Questions? We could do the text message thing, but I don't know how to bring it up on the screen. So just yell them out. Questions, comments, observations. If you want to find fabulous people to network with, now's your opportunity to stand up and say, is anyone else really into? No, we probably shouldn't do that. That was at the meat market, right? That's why I was so excited. The meat market, perfect. Oh, and there are vendors there? Sorry. No? All right, well, thank you all very much again, and thanks for coming to Affiliate Summit, and fly home safely.